So I am so excited about bringing you these rocks. This one I really fell in love with. The colors I'm using for the background are like a dark brown, burnt sienna, and yellow ochre or yellow oxide. Some companies call it yellow oxide, and white, and a little bit of black. And I'm using this is a pouncer for when you're for like stenciling, to pounce the paint on through a stencil. And it gives me the perfect background effect for this rock, and it kind of gives it this leather feel. And so I'm taking the dark brown around the outside edges, and then I'm taking some of the burnt sienna with a little bit of white. And then as I move into the center, I just want to lighten it up a little bit. Now I'm taking some of the yellow ochre. Now I will link below where I got the pouncers. I got them off of Amazon, and it was a big bag, and it comes in 4 different sizes. So this is definitely well worth the money. I think they're pretty cheap too. And I want it to have this mottled effect. I don't want it to look like a solid color. And I went with brown, but you could go with whatever color you wanted. Whatever like would match your decor, or if you're going to gift this, the decor of your friend. I'm not sure I would put this rock outside if you're using modeling paste. I don't know if it's toxic to birds, but if they were to chew it off and swallow it, since I don't know the effect it would have on the wildlife, I wouldn't recommend putting this outside, like if you were going to hide it. You always want to err on the side of caution when it comes to putting these rocks out in nature. And I went through a whole tangent about that birds will eat stuff off of rocks. And just because you resin over it doesn't mean their pound per square inch, their biting ability is incredible. So they can definitely take anything off of a rock. There's nothing you could, far from screwing it onto a rock, they're going to be able to get it off. So I would stay away from attaching anything other than paint. A lot of the paints, as long as it's not oil paint, if they were to chew through the paint, acrylics and craft paints, most of them are non-toxic. There are some toxic paints in oil paints, but they're less likely, unless you glitter the rock, put glitter on it. They will go after things that are glittery and shiny. So anyway, back to this, to the background of the rock. So this is the effect I was going for. It's kind of a mottled effect. Now that it's fully dry, I'm going to kind of draw on my tree branches. On the YouTube video, if you watch that, I just freehanded it. On this one, I actually did this rock first. So I drew them on for this rock. I had the idea of which of the 2 rocks I wanted to do, the companion pieces. One for YouTube, one for you guys. I didn't know which one I was going to pick. This is the one I painted first. I liked it the best, so I saved it for you guys. That's generally how I decide which videos y'all get and which videos YouTube has access to. So I'm just randomly drawing on branches, and then I'm going to take some Mars Black and just paint the branches on. Now, the shakier your arm is, the better. I have a tendency to shake pretty good, so I branches are not difficult for me to paint. If my hand is not anchored, it shakes pretty good. So every other time it's very frustrating, but for branches, if you have a shaky grip, then this is going to be perfect for you. You just don't want the branches to look like straight little lines. You want them to have a little wiggle to them. It'll make them look more realistic. And you see, I'm very deliberate with how I paint these on. And even though I've drawn my design out, I'm still, for one, I'm having a hard time seeing the design due to the glare on the rock. But if I decide that I think things are spaced too symmetrically, I will go in and alter the design. And I am going to be working on a tree tutorial. I was requested by one of my patrons to do a tutorial on how to paint trees. So I am working on that tutorial that will just be for you guys, where I walk through how I paint. I think I'm going to do several different types of trees, like an oak tree, pine tree, and I think a weeping willow, maybe a palm tree. I wasn't asked a specific kind of tree, so I'm just going to give you a variety of trees. So that's an upcoming video that I'm going to try to get out in the next couple days for you. I haven't done it yet because it's been raining here and I can't get down to my studio. Well, I could, but it gets very muddy down when I go down to my studio. Because during the winter I like to paint in the house, not in the studio. It's just so nasty going across the. My studio's on the other end of the property, so I have to walk through our pastures to get there, and they're just real muddy right now. So, the my stuff to do that tutorial is down in my studio, but I'll have to drive over there, I guess, when I get the chance. But I am going to try to get that done in the next couple days for y'all. And if you have any requests, anything you want to see done, even if it's simple, so like just doing a tree or a flower or whatever, just let me know and I will make it a point to do a video for y'all. Sorry, Harley is making a bunch of racket. I don't know how well y'all can hear it on here, but she's being rather distracting. So this rock, actually, this is all in real time, and the whole video I think is like 30 minutes long. It took me less time than that to to paint these rocks. It was very fast. Now, if you don't have the modeling paste, you can just paint on the flowers. If you think this is the only project you'll ever do with modeling paste, I wouldn't recommend buying it. If you think you'll use it in the future, I plan on doing a couple more tutorials. I have a huge thing of modeling paste, so I'm going to try to use some as much of it up as I can. So I will have some more videos of it, but don't feel obligated that you have to have the modeling paste to create this rock. You can just paint these flowers on. They're very basic 4-petal flower. And so, Harley, that is enough. Find something else to say. She's beeping just like an alarm. Trying to drive me crazy. So now I'm highlighting. You want to highlight your branches. Decide which side you want your light to be coming from, your light source. In my case, it's going to be coming from the left-hand side. And then I'm just going to draw a line with a lighter color. This is like burnt sienna and white probably. And really you just have to draw a line down each branch. You don't want the line to be solid, just all the way down like a, like a coloring book. Let that line break and skip down the branch. It'll give it more of a realistic look to it. And these just need one little, now see, that was a little bit much. So you can just dab it with your finger. Now remember, we are going to be putting flowers over this. So if there's a spot you don't like, don't stress about it. You can just cover it with a flower. Now, if you wanted to draw a tree with no leaves, like in a winter scene, this is exactly how I would do it. I might add more branches, but this is the same effect. This is how I would do it. Like that one was a little bright, but if we cover it with a flower, it's not going to stand out as bad. Otherwise, I would tone that particular one down. Oh, I guess I am going to fix it a little bit. I'm just taking some black and thinning down that line. So now I'm taking some of the burnt sienna, you can see, and thinning it out a little bit. And I'm just going to glaze a little bit of that burnt sienna over the highlights just to tone them down just a bit. I don't want them to blend into the background, but they didn't need to be quite as bright as I painted them on. And you see, I'm just swiping that glaze just over them. It does. The goal, you don't have to cover all of it up. And if you liked the way it looked brighter, then by all means keep it that way. This is all just a personal preference. Just remember, in painting, there is no right or wrong. You determine what's right or wrong for your paintings. There's a lot of like rules and guidelines and stuff, but that's all just kind of suggestions. So here's the modeling paste that I use. You see how big a container this is. The one thing that's nice about this is that you can add water to it to thin it back down if it starts getting thick on you. So now the YouTube video, I showed how to do this with a paintbrush. On this one, I'm going to show you guys how to do it with a palette knife. I personally like the way the palette knife looked better. Like, it gave it more texture than the paintbrush. But the paintbrush may be easier for you to use since you're probably more used to using a paintbrush. Now that's my squirt bottle. It's actually a hair mister, so it's a very fine mist. So I put the paste on my palette, and then I did mist it down. It did make it a little bit too thin, but it thickens up as you go. So, and then if it gets too thick, if it starts to dry up on you, you can just add more water and let it, and then mix it, and it'll thin it back out, and then it'll start to harden back up as it sits there and dries in the air. So you have to kind of figure out what consistency you like to work with. And now I'm not real experienced with working with a palette knife. This isn't something I've done very much. So what I did was I just scooped it onto the bottom of the tip of my palette knife. And then I'm scared here. I'm like timid about where to go and what to do. And what I did was I just set the palette knife on the rock and then just pulled towards me kind of slowly. See, I'm not moving very fast. I'm still doing everything very deliberately. And I practiced a little bit before I made this video, but I'm still kind of a little unsure as to exactly how I want to load my palette knife and stuff. So but I noticed that if I watched some videos and they moved real fast with the palette knife, and I realized that when I did that, it just made a mess. That when I was slower and more deliberate with it, I accomplished the look I was going for. And you can use the palette knife to kind of manipulate the way your petals look. So like that one is sticking up a little bit, so I just patted it down and then added my next petal. And then as I move towards the end of the branch, I make the petals smaller and more like bud-like. And you also can add paint to the modeling paste to color it. I have an idea for like a cherry blossom rock where we're going to use the modeling paste and we're going to color it and see how that all turns out. So I'm really excited about doing those rocks. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. I have been trying to put like events on my business page, on the April May Fine Arts business page, so that you'll know what is coming up, what rocks are coming up. Of course, we've got Valentine's Day oh my gosh, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, with Easter all coming up, Mardi Gras coming up. So I'll be doing several rocks for those holidays. So this one may get pushed back further. It's like I really want to do it now, but I've got to start with the Valentine's Day rocks. I've got several really cute rocks planned for that. And then some cute Easter rocks. Oh, and then St. Patrick's Day. Can't forget St. Patrick's Day because my birthday is the day after. My birthday's on the 18th. So St. Patrick's Day's a fun day for me. I've always liked it. So if you're ever curious about what rocks are coming up, go to my my Facebook page, the April May Fine Arts Facebook page, and go to the events, and that should tell you what rocks are coming up. Because I'm trying to add and hopefully eventually I'll add photos, because I do the rocks in advance of when they're going to be released, obviously. So eventually I have a schedule. So I have the rocks already scheduled out like several months in advance so that I can stay focused. And then as I paint them, I will update the schedule with a picture of the rock. So you'll eventually get to see what it is we're actually going to work on. And if you're a member of the Rockin' It with April May, that's a private group. On there, I release the sneak peeks of rocks as I do them. And at that time, I'll let you know that this was a textured rock with modeling paste. So anybody who was a member of that actually had a heads up well in advance of this rock coming out that's what I was going to be working on. And you see, you don't want to do all 4 petals. I did mainly 4 petal flowers, but you see I'm going to throw in some 3 petal flowers. That's like they're laying on, tilted on their side a little bit. You want to give a little bit of variety. Even 2 petal flowers would be fine. Some buds, 3 petal, 4 petal. You really want to mix it up, you could do 5 petals. I thought 5 was going to be a little ambitious while trying to deal with the palette knife, but I think once I spend a little bit more time working with it, I might be able to get 5 petals in there. I don't know. We'll have to see. I thought I did well with just the 4. Like I said, I don't have a lot of experience working with a palette knife. It felt really strange. By the time I got done with this rock, I was a lot more comfortable with it. And knowing that I could go slow and be more methodical with the placement of my petals made me a lot more comfortable. Like I said, when I was researching how to use the palette knife and stuff, everybody's so fast with it that's what made me uncomfortable. Because when I would try to do that, I would end up with just a big blob and was not getting the effect I wanted. But once I slowed it down and was much more deliberate in my placement, I was like, okay, I can do this. So now I think I'm done with my rock, and you saw I scooped back up the modeling paste that I had on my palette. I just put it back into the container because remember we can add water to it and reconstitute it. So you don't have to waste anything that you have on your palette. I'm always like scooping paint up and putting it back into tubes and stuff like that. So I went ahead and did that. Now I'm taking the back end of a paintbrush and I'm just dabbing it into the middle of the petals. And that's creating kind of a dent. But I'm doing it, but when I do that, it's also picking up some of that paste, so I'm wiping it off on the paper towel. And that just gives me kind of an area to put, because I'm going to paint inside the petals. I'm going to put yellow on the inside, in the middle. So, and I'm just kind of manipulating the way the paste is in the middle. You can see how I'm kind of flicking it, and that's helping remove that middle section. So now I'm taking this is just straight yellow ochre or yellow oxide, depending on the company. And I'm not even waiting for this to dry. I'm just going to paint the middle section of each one of the bigger flowers. And I kind of did it in little dots, even though it ends up kind of just all blending together looking like one big dot. But I did kind of do small dots. And now I'm going to sign it. Which I encourage you to sign all of your artwork, no matter what it is. And then, of course, I date mine so that I can always watch my progress. Because even though I've been painting for a long time, I still feel like I improve every year. And it's nice to go back and look at a piece and know when it was done and see how I have progressed as an artist. Plus, when you're long gone and this is a family heirloom down the line, they'll know when you painted it. And there we go. This is the rock. Now this is what it looks like without any kind of clear coat over it. I actually really like the way this looked. I did end up clear coating it just because I was curious as to what it would look like. because I figured I could paint another one and leave it flat if I wanted to, if I ended up preferring that look. I ended up liking both of them, but I am going to show you here in a second what it looks like clear coated. So this way you'll know and you can decide based on what mine look like whether you would rather it be flat or clear coated. So this is one coat of the triple thick, and I think it looks fine. I think I actually preferred it. Sorry, I just hit my microphone. I probably prefer it flat, but I do like the clear coat. So it's totally up to you. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing to my Patreon channel. It means the world to me. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.